welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. On our show today, we're going to talk a little about manure and how best to apply it in the fall or in the spring for that matter, so you get the maximum amount out of it. Fertilizer's expensive, so you want to make sure that any manure you're applying, you're getting every last possible fertility dollar out of it.
Now, one other thing with fertility is taking a good soil test and then knowing what to look for when it comes to calcium. We'll talk about the base saturation test and how important it is to get that calcium percentage just right.
We have one of the toughest weeds in the United States as our weed of the week today, and we also have an iron talk coming up later in the show. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
In today's Farm Basics, we're going to take on one of the hot topics around agriculture. It's ethanol.
Well, when it comes to ethanol, there are a lot of misconceptions out there about it. But here's the big thing you need to understand as a consumer. It's a renewable fuel. What else are you going to use that's a renewable fuel? And I know a lot of people like to talk about battery power and stuff, but I mean, let's face it, we don't have that kind of power available in most of our vehicles today. But you know what? We can use ethanol in most of our vehicles. And if they make the engine correctly, you can run 85% ethanol in a vehicle. It's an awesome deal. And here's the big thing, okay? Think about where a lot of our oil ends up coming from. It's the Middle East. What would you rather do? Would you rather pump a bunch of money into the Middle East, or would you rather pump a bunch of money into the Corn Belt in the United States? That's really what this whole discussion comes back to. And some people will say, well, ethanol doesn't have enough BTUs. All I know is this: when I buy ethanol, it's a lot higher octane, and we've run plenty of studies with the right engines. You can get just about the exact same mileage you can out of ethanol as out of regular fuel. So there's more to it than just talking about BTUs. Ethanol is a great fuel, it's renewable, it's safe, it's very environmentally friendly, and it puts the money back into our country rather than in some other country.
We don't see any of these issues that they're talking about with ethanol being damaging to engines. We just haven't had that problem. We've put a couple 100,000 miles, we've each done a couple 100,000 miles on individual vehicles. I mean, we've literally put hundreds of thousands of miles on flex fuel vehicles. We haven't had any problems with this. So I don't know where all that concern is coming from, because it just doesn't appear to be reality.
Well, where the concern would be is if you don't have the right setup in your vehicle. And yes, just by having slightly different lines and just a few minor changes, you take care of all that. But with most common vehicles, you're not going to have that issue. Okay, so here's the main thing I wanted to get to. When you look at, let's talk about ethanol just in general. Everybody says food versus fuel. Come on, that's ridiculous. There's no food versus fuel thing, because here's what we do. When they're manufacturing ethanol, all they're taking out of that corn is a starch. You know how many nutrients they're taking out? N, P, K, things like that? Zero. They're not taking any of that. They want the starch. All those nutrients go in the distiller's grain, that's the leftover byproduct, and then also there's carbon dioxide. Okay, those are the three components when you're all said and done. All right, and that distiller's grain, all you'd have to do is mix that with some corn stalks or something like that to add back some starch, and you're right back to 100%, right where you started in terms of the food. What food did we lose? We didn't lose any food. It's ridiculous. And the other thing that they figure in there ridiculously is the energy it takes to produce the crop. Well, guess what? We were already raising 90 million acres of corn before ethanol even got going. Okay, so you can't figure that. We were already producing the corn. That was getting produced for livestock. So we're still producing the corn for livestock. Now we're taking ethanol out of that and we're supplementing some other things in to help feed the livestock. That's all we're doing. So if you're going to figure all this extra energy, that is ridiculous. It's absolutely dead wrong, and you're getting just horrible information from the mainstream media. I'm telling you, I just think it's a crime that they're misleading the general public. Ethanol is a great thing for America. It's a great thing for the earth, and it's a great thing for the farmer.
Hey, one last comment too. Some of the biggest backers of ethanol have been our retired and current military personnel. They look at this as a national security issue. Here we have the ability to produce fuel safely and cleanly in our own country. And we're all around the world, fighting battles many times over energy. And a lot of it, as Brandon mentioned earlier, is in the Middle East or other parts of the world where people don't necessarily like us so much. It would be so much better for our military as well if we had all this production right here in our country where it's already safe and protected, and our people could stay here too.
The other big thing is when you look at ethanol, because of ethanol, the price of fuel today is dramatically lower. So what we want you to do with all this information we've been talking about today is do your own research. You don't have to take our word for these things. There are plenty of good studies out there, but just do your homework on it, and it's not going to take you real long to figure out that ethanol is a great thing for everybody. It's reducing the price of fuel today. And if we have more ethanol going forward, it's just pumping the money into middle America, into the corn belt of the United States, into the United States in general, instead of sending all our money overseas.
Well, one other thing that's great for everyone in America is if we could stop this difficult to control weed of the week. We'll show you some steps we'll take coming up later in the show.
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans will provide tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate and will be built on the Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield trait. See them in action at extendfollowafield.com.
There's no clock on this job. Just the timeless hands of intuition and effort, ticking from within. An endless cadence of committed work, from the passing of Mother Nature's final frost to the hanging dew at harvest. Around here, wheels are always turning, and watches need no winding, because success never rests.
We know that the future is liquid. That's how agriculture liquid fertilizer creates the highest quality products on the market. Because we're committed to finding the best raw materials at the best price possible and getting them from us to you in the most sustainable, responsible ways possible. Agriculture liquid fertilizers, helping you grow the future.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a SoilMax Gold Digger tile plow. SoilMax tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a SoilMax Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with SoilMax. Visit soilmax.com.
Some prefer to invest in fields halfway around the world, in short-term solutions to long-term challenges. At Poet, we're investing in the fields we have right here at home, cultivating communities and growing the local economy, creating new local jobs while we create worldwide energy solutions, helping family farms grow even as they fuel the world, because we know that investing in a community can pay global dividends. See the world differently with Poet.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
Almost every time we talk about manure here in Ag PhD, Darren and I will probably relate some story from back when we were kids. We used to have to scoop hog manure starting at a very young age. We're very familiar with manure.
Some of us weaseled out of that job a little bit earlier in life than others.
Hey, all I know is I've handled plenty of manure in my lifetime, scooping it by hand, moving it with the skid steer loader, spreading it on the field. We've got all kinds of years of experience handling manure, and we've also really looked hard at this thing because here's what Dad used to tell us when we were growing up. Well, that's the smell of money. I don't believe that. Here's what I believe. That's the smell of lost money. Because if you can smell it, that was something that, hey, if I put it in the ground, it could be a good thing for my next crop. I don't want to smell manure. We want to do everything we can to reduce the smell, not only so it helps us with non-farmers, but so we can maximize our fertility value.
There's a lot of value in manure, especially when you look at today's fertility prices. The other thing with manure is this can really be a negative thing for us on the farm if we don't manage it properly. If we have runoff into rivers or streams or problems that way, or just odor problems with our non-farm neighbors, I mean, it can give us a bad name as farmers. So we want to do everything we can to manage it right. The first thing I'll say in terms of tips for manure management is get the manure tested so you know what the nutrient levels are. We don't want to over apply manure to a field. We want to put on the right amount to feed the next crop. If we're over applying where we've got such an excess of nutrients that we have issues with leaching away or running off, that's where we can get into trouble.
Well, the things we're most concerned about are nitrogen and salt. Okay, because with nitrogen, that can leach down, like Darren said, and with salt, if you get too much salt, that's really, really harmful for your soil. Now, what most people are focused on is the amount of phosphorus that's in there. We're not really concerned by that, and here's why. Because we want you to inject your manure or at least get that tilled very deeply in your ground. Here's what you need to understand with phosphorus. It doesn't move in soil. If I take it and I place it 8 inches deep, guess what? Until it gets used up, it stays at pretty much 8 inches deep. It might move to 9, but it's really not going anywhere. So where the problem comes is if you lay all that manure on top of the ground and you lightly work it in, well, guess what? You've got all your manure, all that phosphorus in the top inch or two, and sure, nitrogen can move down, sulfur can move down, boron can move down, potassium can move very, very slowly, but it can still move more than phosphorus. Phosphorus is the real problem. If you get any erosion off that field and your soil moves, what moves with it? Phosphorus. Phosphorus is the #1 water quality issue we have in the United States today. We've got to keep it in our fields, and it starts with applying it correctly. That means put it deep. When you put that manure deep, not only are you going to dramatically reduce the smell, now you have properly applied your phosphorus, you have properly stored your phosphorus, and you're going to prevent any future problems with phosphorus runoff on your farm.
The other thing in terms of managing that odor is just timeliness. We can't get too far ahead where we're spreading manure out over a lot of acres. We can only put it on what we're for sure going to get covered. I was talking to a farmer just outside of a very large city, and he said that was one of the worst mistakes they'd ever made, is they spread it on more acres than they could get covered in one day. A rainstorm came up, and then you put fresh manure on top of the ground, and then get rain, and then the wind blew right into town. He said he had so many complaints, people thought he was the worst farmer ever. He's like, man, I made one mistake of, I spread one field too many that we couldn't get to. He goes, I will never do that again. We're gonna do one field at a time from here on out.
Here's the other big thing we encourage you to do. Consider one of these products to stabilize the nitrogen in there and also to help keep the phosphorus available in the future. So we're talking about products like More Than Manure that can do both those things, or there are just plain nitrogen stabilizers that you could use. So take a real hard look at some of these things. But the big thing is, like Darren said, be timely, don't over apply, get your manure tested. You gotta do these things. These aren't steps that we used to take a generation ago, or especially 2 generations ago, but in modern agriculture today, we need to. We need to do the right things, not only for us and for our farm, but for the environment and the soil as well.
Well, manure is certainly valuable. We want to manage it correctly. Another thing we need to manage properly is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling 0 downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
One of the main yield limiting factors that we've seen over the last 2 decades is reducing soil fertility levels. Across not just Wisconsin, but the Midwest in general, soil P and K levels have steadily dropped. One of the things I really want to encourage growers is go out, take their soil tests, understand and apply those soil fertility levels to your yield potential, and make sure that you're not shorting yourselves, because unlike many inputs, soil fertility, those inputs always pay.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
Everybody's all concerned about N, P, and K, Brian, and we forget about one of the biggest nutrients that we need out in our crop because it's labeled a secondary nutrient, but it's extremely important. It's calcium.
When you look at the base saturation test on calcium, we want to see that number between 65 and 80%. As long as it's above 65%, we're usually feeling pretty good about that. And here's one of the most important things you need to understand with calcium. It's a big molecule. Let's compare it to magnesium, that's a very small molecule. Now, just think about the pore space you have when they're big molecules. The example I always give, and I probably used it on the show before here, is let's say I'm in a great big room and I fill that room with basketballs. Okay, I can still breathe because there's plenty of pore space, plenty of air that's able to move between those basketballs. But if I fill that great big room with sand, guess what? I'm dead. There's no pore space. The same thing happens in your field when I compare a big molecule like calcium to a small molecule like magnesium. I've got to have plenty of calcium in the soil so I have plenty of oxygen there. If I don't have oxygen, I don't have roots.
Now, if you've got a high pH soil and a base saturation of, say, 58% calcium, and we say put on lime, you may think, we're just crazy. But you have to get that calcium out there, and we have the best response putting calcium carbonate out there to get that calcium quickly available to your crop and in your soils. You know, we talk about other options like gypsum, for example, calcium sulfate, and a lot of times in those high pH soils, that may not be the best product to get us a quick response.
What we're trying to tell you here is we want you to learn how to read the soil test so you can figure out your best return on investment, especially going into what could potentially be a challenging year for profitability in 2015. If you see, hey, I've got low calcium, you should know, oh, I can get a good return by putting on some more calcium. It's going to help me on my overall yield and profitability.
And it's not going to matter if you put on more N, P, or K. If you're drastically short in calcium,
that's the point.
That's where you're going to get your return.
If you're not getting a base saturation test done, you need to switch labs or you need to request from your lab that you get this test run. And again, base saturation is the ratio of 5 different nutrients. It's calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and hydrogen.
There's more information out there for you that you can seek. You can look at agphd.com, find out where our winter workshops are at, and specifically our soils clinics. We're going to talk about how to read a soil test, how to pull a soil test, and how to get better return on investment, or a better return on investment with every fertility input that you put into your fields. Also, you can find more information at soils.agphd.com, and you can download the free AgPhD soil test app.
Well, once again, it's incredibly important to get your calcium percentage above 65% in your base saturation soil test. It will help you on your farm, help you make more money, and help your soil improve over time.
All those improvements in your soil are great, but you won't maximize your production unless you can control our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how right after this.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Get ready to take control of weeds like never before. Enlist will build on the Roundup Ready system with new herbicide and trait technology, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm.
Our weed of the week is one of the toughest that you're going to find in the United States and
in
really
the world.
in the world.
In the world.
Yep, it's Marestail. It's also called horseweed, but this plant is just awful in part because it's a winter annual. So by the time spring rolls around, by the time you want to seed your corn or soybeans, just about any crop, this weed might be big. It might be very difficult to kill. And by the way, it's probably Roundup resistant. It's most likely ALS resistant, and it's pretty tolerant to a lot of other herbicides as well. How are we going to stop this thing?
You know, and here's the other thing is it has multiple flushes in a year. It used to be that we would see Marestail as a winter annual. Oh, it'd pop up in the fall. You know, if we did some fall 2,4-D or fall dicamba, we wipe it out and we don't have a problem next spring. Now it's popping up in the spring. We're seeing 5 or 6 generations pop up during the summer. We're just constantly out there trying to get this under control. So the first thing I'll say is crop canopy is a huge help. That's your best weed control you can get. If you've got a good, healthy, thick crop that shades out the ground completely, that's a great way to stop some of these resistant weeds.
Don't forget about a cover crop in the fall. Let's say you harvest early in the fall, put a cover crop out there to shade that ground out. That will help keep some Marestail down as well. The crop where we probably have the most difficulty with Marestail, other than cotton, would be soybeans.
I really like Liberty Link soybeans where we've got Marestail problems because now I can use Liberty a couple of times post-emerge in crop. And Liberty can do a nice job if we get the Marestail when it's small. I'm talking 2 to 4 inches tall. When we're looking at a foot, 2 foot, 3 foot tall Marestail, good luck with anything.
And with soybeans, you do have to start with a good pre-emerge herbicide program, but here's the mistake I see a lot of people making. They want to use 2,4-D. I just don't like 2,4-D in front of soybeans at any stage. I mean, even if it's a week or two ahead of time, I know the label might say it's okay, but we've had lots of people do it over the years and hurt their soybeans. And if you're not really checking this closely, you'll probably never see that 5 or 10 bushel loss, or even if it's a 3 bushel loss, it's still way too much. Don't put 2,4-D out in front of your soybeans. Here's what I'd rather see you do. Number 1, we want you to use the normal 3-pre strategy we talk about all the time in soybeans. That's a yellow, trifluan-sonoliner prowl, a PPO, Authority or Valor, and metribuzin. In addition to that, I would suggest you use gramoxone. That will do a great job burning down Marestail. If you want to, you can also throw in some other adjuvants like methylated seed oil or crop oil, and certainly you can throw some fertilizer in with that mix too. So if you throw a bunch of things together, we can absolutely get that Marestail burned down without using 2,4-D.
The thing that I see is people using products that we can use post-emerge as their pre-emerge treatment. I'm talking about things like First Rate especially, and also Flex Star. When we use premixes of pre's that contain Flex Star and First Rate, now we can only use those products safely in most cases once per year. If we use them pre, now we have that many fewer options to use post-emerge. Now I'm not saying those products don't work fairly well pre, they do. I mean, I love Sonic, Authority First, Prefix, they're great pre's, but I like to make other choices. Then we can save those post-emerge products for our post-emerge use.
Okay, couple last things with corn. Just start with a good pre, maybe Verdict, that's probably the best. Post-emerge Status is the best. In wheat, same kind of thing, sharpen down. Follow post-emerge, I'd go probably Husky. But here's what I want to tell you. With the winter annual version of Marestail, which is what we do usually see, hit it really hard in the fall. Before corn, I'd use a full quart of Banville. Before soybeans, I would use a whole bunch of 2,4-D. And I'm talking again in the fall before you plant your corn or soybeans in the spring.
That's all the time we have for our Weed of the Week Marestail, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Our industry-leading SCR technology has powered over 35,000 pieces of equipment with over 17 million operating hours in North America alone. Case IH, proven power, proven efficiency, proven in the field.
Harvest loss is very costly to farmers around the world. In soybeans, for example, our national average yield is around 45 bushels per acre, and the average farm has a 3 to 4% harvest loss. In today's Iron Talk, we'll discuss how to determine exactly what that harvest loss is costing your farm right now. First of all, I'd recommend making a small investment. Make a square for you to use in a field while you're combining. Second, download the free Ag PhD Harvest Loss app that we developed in conjunction with Case IH. Then head to the field. We'll talk about soybeans right now, but the same information would hold true for other crops as well. As I've mentioned already, on a 45 bushel crop, the average harvest loss is 3 to 4%. That's about 1.5 bushels. At $9 soybeans, that's $13.50 an acre. On 1,000 acres, that's a $13,500 loss. Pull up the app and pick the crop you're working with. In this case, it's soybeans. Type in the current crop price. We'll use $9 for this example, and the number of seeds that you found, we'll use 8. 8 soybeans on the ground per square foot is about a 2 bushel per acre loss. If this is the loss before you've run the combine, you've got some big problems already with shatter. Then, as you run the combine through the field, put the square down behind the combine to see the total loss. Put the square down and then drive just the head of the combine over the area to see the loss at the head. By comparing all these things, you can diagnose exactly where your harvest loss is coming from and get it fixed. The best operators will get their harvest loss down to 0.5% or possibly even less. So again, download the free Ag PhD Harvest Loss app and use a 1-foot square in your field. The cost is just about zero, and the information you gain can alert you to problems costing your farm thousands. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
My data is mine, not mined.
Mine to share.
Mine to keep. It's mine when I want it.
Mine where I want it.
And only mine. My data is mine to analyze.
Mine to put to work.
Mine to control. It's mine.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
This year's projected U.S. soybean yield will lose over $500 million per point in shrink. Eliminate shrink in your bin. Store grain without lowering moisture content with the AgriDrive Bullseye Temperature and Moisture Controller. The Bullseye monitors air temperature and relative humidity, allowing your fans to utilize the weather's natural condition to maintain your grain at market moisture. Fan run times drastically decrease along with the cost of over-drying. Eliminate shrink today. Call now.
We know that the future is liquid. That's why Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers corporate sales force is the best trained, best equipped in the industry. Because our communications, our relationships, our ethics are as strong and as innovative as the products we design. That's why our customers trust us. Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers, helping you grow the future.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
That's all the time we have for today, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Can you increase your field's topsoil layer by reducing tillage, planting high residue crops, utilizing cover crops, and adding manure to the soil? Topsoil can be rebuilt. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.